For us to talk about being fully devoted followers of Jesus, we have to look at it in every aspect of our life, not just some. So today, we're going to talk about everybody's favorite topic. We're talking about money today. This is your first time here, and this, you're like, oh my gosh, I walked in the doors and they're already talking about money. Don't worry, it won't be the last time we talk about it either, okay? All right? If the Bible talks about it, we need to talk about it, okay? That's what it means to be healthy as a follower of Jesus Christ. And so we talked earlier in the series about what happened when they were dedicating the temple. You remember that? We were in 2 Chronicles, one of those books in the Old Testament we don't go to all that often. Well, today we're going to take a step back from there. We're going to go to 1 Chronicles, please. Because what we're going to do is we're going to look at what set up the story of when they were dedicating the temple. Whenever they were getting ready to go and share and worship and do all the things that God had called them to do, there was something that happened first. And in 1 Chronicles chapter 29, we actually find King David. So in 2 Chronicles, we hear from King Solomon, but in 1 Chronicles, here in chapter 29, we're hearing from King David. And King David is, at the beginning of this chapter, talking about everything that they have gathered so that they can build the temple. And when you look at the list, you can go back and read through those first 10 verses or so. It's amazing all that they gathered to build this temple. They gathered gold and jewels and silks and fabrics and things that they needed to create this beautiful, incredible, holy place where God's presence was going to come and dwell. And as they gathered all of this together, you need to understand that it's a little different than how we gather stuff today. Okay, when we gather something as a society today, it is typically under some form of duress, right? Okay, the IRS tells us how much we have to give in order to make this happen. Very few of us do it willingly, right? But what happened then was David called all the people together. He said, look, this is what God has called us to do. God has laid out the vision for this incredible temple that we are to build. God has told me as king, since I have been a king of war, I have been a king who has helped see the conquering of our enemies, that I will not be the one to build the temple. But I want to prepare the way for the one who will build the temple, which will end up being his son, Solomon. He said, so here's what we need. We need to gather together everything that is necessary so that when this person comes into this role, everything is set up and ready for them to go. And so he asks all the people to come and to give. And people freely come and they begin to give out of this incredible excess that God has blessed them with. And if we find here in this chapter, it begins to lay it out for us in just an incredible way. It says in verse 10, then David blessed the Lord in the sight of all the assembly. David said, may you be blessed, Lord God of our father Israel, from eternity to eternity. Yours, Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the splendor and the majesty. For everything in the heavens and on earth belongs to you. Yours, Lord, is the kingdom, and you are exalted as head over all. Riches and honor come from you, and you are the ruler of everything. Power and might are in your hand, and it is in your hand to make great and to give strength to all. Now, therefore, our God, we give you thanks and praise your glorious name. First thing he says is, look, you are worthy of it all. You are the one that has allowed all this to happen. You are the one who is in control. But then he begins to talk about himself. He said, but who am I and who are my people that we should be able to give as generously as this? I love this question that David asks. First of all, it lays out at the beginning of the chapter all the stuff that they brought. He then says, God, you are worthy of everything that we brought. And then he says, who am I that I should get to be the one to bring it? What an incredible statement. Most of us don't think about giving as an opportunity. Most of us think about giving as an obligation. There's a big difference between an opportunity and an obligation. An obligation is something that I am required to do, something I am compelled to do. I made a purchase the other day in Mobile, Alabama. Don't recommend doing it, okay? Here's why. I went up and I went to pay, and he said, hey, in this particular section of town, we have a 10% sales tax. 10% sales tax. Are you kidding me? And I'm running the numbers in my head. And I know that if I drive back to Florida to buy it, I could save like $3. So I'm not going to do that, obviously, right? But I didn't give up that 10% willingly. I gave up that 10% because I was compelled to do it. If I wanted the item that I was purchasing, I had to pay the tax. And some of us, we look at giving to God as having to pay a tax. And I believe that part of the reason for that is the way the church has communicated it over the years. In the church, we often talk about something called the tithe, T-I-T-H-E, tithe. And tithe is something that God laid out in the Old Testament as a way for us to understand our relationship with God and what He gifts us with and what we give away. The best way that I could begin to kind of put this into effect for you, does anybody here have a $20 bill? I know a lot of people don't carry cash, but does anybody here have a $20 bill today that you could get to quickly? Somebody. There we go. Dave, can I have that $20 bill, please? Dave's such a good guy. He has no idea what I'm going to do. He has no idea I'm going to light it on fire. He's never going to see it. No, I'm joking.
Probably won't get it back.
All right. So Dave just gave me $20. I am now $20 richer. Would we agree with that? He didn't say, I have to have it back, right? I said, does anybody have a $20 bill? And he said, yes, I do. I said, can I have it? He said, yes, right? Okay, I don't have to. Is there anybody here today that needs $20? All right, Dave Mobley needs $20, right? If I go and I give this to David Mobley, have I lost anything? Why haven't I lost anything? It wasn't mine to begin with. Think about that for a second. It wasn't mine to begin with. If I go and I hand this to David Mobley, I am no worse off than when I started. I want you to think about this. What if I knew David needed to go to McDonald's and buy a sweet tea? Right? And I gave him $2. I'm still $18 ahead, even though I've given up $2 so that David can go get a sweet tea. I mean, that seems, we sit here in this little arrangement and we look at this and go, well, of course. I mean, you're not losing anything. You're already ahead of where you started. But do you understand that's how God treats us with the things that He gives us, and yet we act like, nope, it's mine. I'm not letting go. It's mine. It's all mine. You really, God? You want me to give 10% to you? God, you want me to give more than that for special things? God, how could you? Don't you know I only have so much to live on? God, don't you know the bills are still due at the end of every month? God, don't you know that my neighbors just bought this new thing, and so if I don't, I'm going to look like the schlupp of the neighborhood? And God looks at us and says, it wasn't yours to begin with. It was mine, and I gave it to you. And so the Old Testament concept of the tithe was very simple. It was a way of taking this small portion of what they had been given and offering it back to God as an acknowledgement that it all came from him in the first place. That's what the tithe was all about. And so the tithe represented 10%. Okay, so if you gathered up 200 bushels of grain, that's what God blessed you with that year in the harvest, you would offer 20 bushels of that grain back to God in the form of an offering. If you raised 10 sheep that year, you would offer 1 sheep back to God as an offering. And it was a way of saying that everything I have comes from him. And because it all comes from him, it's really not mine to do with, it's his to do with as he pleases. And so if he asks for one back, it's all his. Now the problem is that we operate in a world where we like to know the facts and we like to have a plan. And if you're my wife, you like that times 100, okay? All right? That's how it works in our family. We just had this conversation yesterday, right? And so what happened is we said, okay, well, a tithe is 10%. So that means that if I make $50,000 a year, I need to be giving $5,000 to God. But then somebody will say, well, wait, is that gross or is that net? I've heard people ask those questions. Is it gross or is it net? The moment you're asking, is it gross or is it net, you've missed the point. Because the point is, it's all God's. And it's not about a percentage. It's about our heart. Because if it's just about a percentage, I want you to know there are people all over our world today that have zero relationship with Christ, who give millions of dollars every year for all sorts of great causes. But God calls us to give, not so we can keep the lights on, although we enjoy keeping the lights on. He calls us to give, not so we can pay our staff our salaries, although we enjoy payday. I'm not going to lie. The reason that we give to God is so that we can acknowledge that it was all his to begin with, and by trusting him with that, then we get to participate as the family of God in more things that he wants to do in and through our community. I love what David said here. Who am I? What right should I have that I get to participate with what you're doing, God? How should I be able to give this generously? Because it shouldn't be mine to begin with. You've blessed me with it. We have given you only what comes from your own hand. I love it when you have a little kid and you're teaching them how to give gifts. You ever seen a parent give a child money to go buy a parent a present? Seen that happen? I mean, isn't that kind of ridiculous? Right? It's already the parent's money. And the kid's probably going to go buy a gift that the parent doesn't even want. Why do we do that? Because we are teaching that child what it means to give good gifts. Teaching that child what it means to take something and to give away to others rather than keep for ourselves. In the exact same way, God looks at us and says, I'm giving to you so that you can have the opportunity to give back to me.